Let me introduce myself. I'm a teacher over at Westwood High School, and I'm putting together some supplementary um, lessons to help kids that are more visually oriented. And I'd like to start by introducing Oscar. He's going to help me do this. And I tell everybody to think algebra when you're studying algebra, and uh, we're going to begin by introducing our students to linear equations. And I have a few things drawn on the board. One is a graph, and every problem that you do from now on deserves to have at least a cartoon graph put together so that you can visualize the function or the material that you're working with. So I know a lot of people can't remember where the x-axis goes and where the y-axis goes. So all I do is take the y and put a little arrow on the bottom of it. That implies that it goes up and down. That's pretty cool. And then of course the x is what's left over, can go sideways. So now I have my x-axis and my y-axis. And what do we do with that? That locates every single point in the universe in that plane can be described by an ordered pair. Ordered pairs are in alphabetical order. They contain two numbers, the x number and the y value. And for example, if I have 2 comma 2, that means my x value is 2, and I could plot that 1, 2, and I'm going to go up to y value 2, plot that, and I go to the intersection of those 2 points, and I put that point right there. And sometimes people like to label it 2 comma 2 right on the graph. And my next example is minus 2, minus 2. If I go minus 2, I'm going to go in this direction. This is the minus direction, and this is the positive direction. And I'm going to go minus 2, minus 2. This is the minus direction also for the y. I go down here and I plot minus 2, minus 2. And there's my 2 points. And I can even plot fractions. This is one of the features that really scares kids. 3 halves and minus 1 halves. If you just think about that, 3 halves is a little bit more than 1, 1.5, and minus 1/3, the 1/3 is a little bit less than 1. So I'm going to be plotting my points right in this little circle. And so 3 halves is going to be 1.5. That's a positive 1.5, so that's right to there. And I'm going to go down 1/3. So I estimate about 1/3. So my point there will be right there, and I can label that 3 halves and minus 1/3. Pretty cool, huh? So moving on from there, we're going to be talking about straight lines, and I'd like to talk about the properties of a straight line. Let me just connect these 2 points, and I think you'll get an idea of what a straight line is. And this actually goes on forever. That would be an example of a linear line. And the first thing we notice is that they're pretty straight. They are straight. And they also have what is known as a slope. How steep is that line? And we talked about the slope as being the rise over the run. So I can create a little right triangle here, and I can measure this as delta y and delta x. And let's see, the slopes. This slope is a positive slope. So slopes can be positive and negative. So if they rise from left to right, then that's a positive slope. And if they decline from left to right, that's a negative slope. So the rise is looked at as the delta y. Delta y is equal y2 minus y1. And the run is equal to delta x, which is x2 minus x1. And I thought I would just add the idea of a function. That was one of the things I grew up with. Not really fully understanding it till later in my career. f of x simply talks about the equation as it exists through the whole length of its existence. So f of x really talks about the whole thing from minus infinity to plus infinity. And if I want to find out a particular answer, I change that f of x to y equals 2x plus 3, and then I can plug in a value of x and find out what the y is. So that gives me a single answer, whereas f of x describes the whole function. And in this case, the domain, which is all the x values can go from minus infinity to plus infinity, and the range is going to be all the y values, all the answers, and that can also go from minus infinity to plus infinity. So this is kind of just an introduction to remind you of the things that we're going to deal with in the next couple of chapters. Okay? So there you have it. Take a break.